Om Shanti. How are you all? Today we are going to discuss about why God says sex is a sin. Because it gives pleasure, obviously. Then why should God forbid humans from experiencing that pleasure? That's the number one question everybody arises. And the second question asked by many are, if there is no sex, then there will not be any reproduction. So this world wouldn't exist any longer if there is no sex. And the third question is, they say no religion forbids sex. Then how can God say sex is a sin? And the last question, inevitable question, is if sex is a sin, why should God create sexual organs, male and female genitals? So the pleasure is of two kinds. One is the divine pleasure, which is of superior nature, and the second one is the sensual pleasures, which needs the senses to experience it, which is considered inferior. And the most inferior of those inferior pleasures is sex. But it is equally true that we are so much addicted to the sexual pleasures that it feels as if it is the number one pleasure for us. Most of the people wouldn't even think of living if they can't have sex. They even become mentally disturbed if they can't perform sexually. They feel as if they are worthless. And the questions I asked in the beginning of this video is quite similar to the question raised by Satan to Eve in Bible. When God forbids Adam and Eve from eating fruits from a particular tree that is in the center of the Adam's garden, this Satan in the form of snake asked Eve, why you don't consume particularly the fruit of this tree? And when Eve replied to Satan that God permitted us to eat everything but the fruit of this particular tree, for that Satan says, God doesn't want you to experience the ultimate pleasure and immortality. If you eat the fruit of this tree, then you will attain immortality. On listening to that, Eve, on seeing that tree, it looks so appealing to her. It looks very beautiful. She wants to grab the fruit and eat it instantly. So such is the temptation on seeing the tree. So that is actually regarding sex. So that is the tree in the center of the Adam's garden. And these sexual organs, they are present in the center of the body. The moment we become curious of that, so it doesn't stop at all throughout your life. So it consumes most of your energy, time, and it spoils your health, both physically and mentally and spiritually. People somehow found today that watching porn is an addiction. But unfortunately, they didn't realize sex is the addiction. It is the number one drug. It is far worse than any other addictive drug that you can imagine. Sex starts from the time when a male or female child has this strange attraction towards the opposite sex. It starts at a very early age. From that moment on, their mind is actually, your mind gets intoxicated, which means it can't perform 100% anymore. So you can see in a school, if you closely watch the dull students, they tend to have more sexual thoughts than others, than the bright student. And you will see in the later stage, so their future will also be according to that. And they can't perform nicely in any field because they are so preconceived with sexual thoughts. Where does it come from? It comes from the previous births. So he's been taking, so whatever predominant thoughts we possess during the time of death, we just carry those thoughts in the form of characters to the next birth. That is the reason some are very dull, because they were so much obsessed with sexual thoughts. So, you know, if someone is obsessed over somebody sexually, they'll be so intoxicated towards each other. That is the main reason teenagers spend the whole night on phone talking with each other sexually. They may have very important tasks the next day, but still their intellect cannot work. It doesn't want to work because it's so much intoxicated. So they spend the whole night talking, and the next day they feel themselves very tired. Sometimes they don't even go to work. So this brings huge loss for them, especially if it continues long term, then their life itself is in question. So these sexual thoughts happens as if they want to know something out of curiosity. But the fact is, this curiosity doesn't end till the death. So it just takes all your energy out of your soul. So leaving it so tired, it cannot think properly. So you can't focus on anything. So obviously you will end up a big failure in any walk of life. If you get angry due to any reason, then you will find yourself browsing through the internet, browsing through YouTube videos for a very long time, though you know you have to do something else. That is mainly due to the fact that your mind no longer works, so it goes to the intoxicated state. But that is thousandfold with sex. If you talk over a girl sexually for 5 to 30 minutes, then you will, after hanging up the phone, you will find yourself doing something unwanted. You can't focus on anything else. Maybe you will end up watching pornography, or even if you don't want to watch pornography, you will watch something else, but you will be wasting your whole day in that. So that is the main reason. If lovers, they meet with the intention of doing something else after the meeting, once they meet, their mind no longer thinks that they don't want to leave each other, though, so they spend more time than it was determined earlier. So that is how they spoil each other's life. That is why love is very dangerous compared to marriage. At least in marriage, you will come out of that infatuation soon after marriage. But in the love, the stage before marriage, so that is a totally different case, because your mind is going to be in a bewildered state for a long time, constantly, because you develop those lustful thoughts constantly. You will have that attraction constantly. So what happens is your mind becomes so dull and weak that it gets attracted to any opposite sex instantly, because it has become very weak. It has no control on itself. And now the whole world has become like that, so they think it's quite natural to get attracted to opposite sex no matter what your age is. Not only sex causes much harm to you in this birth, but also in your future births. Yes, God comes and gives this knowledge in the last 100 years before the world destruction, because God wants to rescue these souls. Soul is immortal. The only difference is when the soul enters this earth for the first time, it was 100% pure. And this world itself was very pure. That's why it was called heaven. It was filled with wealth and everything that you need to be blissful and peaceful. No animals will fight with each other. Even animals feed only on plants so that they don't hurt each other. That was the kind of world God created for us. And we were deities, the residents of heaven. They are called deities, and we were those in the beginning. After taking several rebirths for the first 2,500 years, we slowly become body conscious, because of which we become addicted to sensual pleasures. Before that, while in heaven, we were soul conscious. We considered ourselves to be imperishable soul that is entirely different from this body. So our soul shines in between the eyebrows, which is why Hindus have this habit of wearing religious symbol in between the eyebrows. So when your attention is totally focused on the soul, you will find yourself in the excited state, in the blissful state, because that's the true nature of the soul. That's how we were for the first 2,500 years. We were always blissful. But after that, this heaven becomes hell, because we lose soul conscious and we become body conscious, because of which we fall addicted to these 5 vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. Thereby our soul power decreases gradually, and now it has almost decreased fully. That is when God comes and helps us regain the power. How? By becoming pure. How? By remembering God. The more time we spend in remembering God as a point of light, because that's how He is. He is also a soul just like us. That is why He is called Supreme Soul. He is called God Shiva by Hindus, and Allah by Muslims, and Heavenly Godfather by Christians. God is just one. He comes in the end and enters an old man's body and gives His introduction, and the introduction about this 5,000-year time cycle, and He wants us to get back to heaven, where we originally came from. And the way to do that is to become as pure as we were originally in the beginning. How do we do that? By remembering God as much as possible. And also we need to refrain from the worldly matters, worldly attractions. And that is possible by remembering God as much as possible and by listening to the word of God. So He enters an old man's body to give this knowledge, the truth. Only God possesses the truth. All religions are created by humans, thereby it won't be 100% truth. There will be some truth, that's it. So God comes in the end as promised by Bible and Hinduism. He comes, and it is God Shiva, not Jesus or Sri Krishna comes in the end, because that time was over. So everybody comes only once in this 5,000-year time cycle. That is in that particular name. then they will take rebirth. Everybody has to take rebirth except God Shiva, who comes in the end and gives this knowledge. God is ever pure because he doesn't take body like us. He doesn't take birth as a child. So he enters an old man's body directly because he needs a body to speak to us. Otherwise, he will always be a point of light. So all we need to do now to become as pure as God is to remember God as a point of light and remember the knowledge given by God called Murli as much as possible. That Murli is available totally free of cost in all Raj Yoga meditation centers, and also it is available free online. I will link it in the description. So read Murli daily, and also there are many who take Murli classes. Please listen to it quite often and take some important points and churn over it. Don't leave your mind free. If you leave your mind free, it will automatically become weak and start going towards the inferior pleasures, thereby ending in lust. So now if you become 100% pure, then you will enter the heaven in the beginning itself. But if you're somewhat careless and if you're becoming only 80% pure before leaving this body, then you will be entering after some time, not in the beginning. If you're only 50% pure, you will enter pretty much later. If you haven't become pure at all, then you will have to suffer all the punishment for the sins you have been committing for the past 2500 years, because these 5 vices are called sins, that is lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego. So that is why we are punished in the form of diseases, natural calamities, poverty, and so on. So God has come to rescue us